All right, let's see. We do have sound, but is it coming through the right place? Yeah, I think so. I kind of lucked out on that, truthfully. All right. Couple things here. I'm going to turn off the chat on YouTube. I won't be able to see the chat on YouTube. Unfortunately, it will get spammed. Likely. Stop a couple of these, which we have amassed. Almost there. Oop. Okay. I'm jumping right in. I'm already actually in the middle of a PR, but I figured I would pop the stream on. Flip the view over. Yep. And looks like we got OBS. Okay. I am looking at a PR. What this is in WizNet, which is the Ethernet. Ethernet Featherwing is the device that I'm aware of that has this. There may be others. There's probably like an Uno form factor one, I guess, that probably uses the same one. I'm not sure. This is a PR for typing, so I'm just going through that, and I made it, I don't know, a little part of the way through. I have a comment up there that we'll post when we're ready, so I'm just going through this for now. How's it going? Good morning, Paul Kuttner. Have a Pico, a Pico one? A Raspberry Pi Pico one? Really? Did not know that existed. Pico Ethernet. Oh. There's like a, oh, okay, I see. This one's like a flat one. Interesting. Or there's just an actual board with it. Or there's one that's actually fits over. Nice. Huh. Yeah, I did not know that was an option out there. That's pretty sweet. Okay. I don't need this empty page here. So this is the library that allows the Ethernet Ethernet network connection to work. So we're going through the types here. Been too crazy so far, truthfully. So we kind of scooted this down here because it returns none now. This really didn't change that much. It just is showing it in kind of a weird way. I guess the quotes moved down to their own line. Boolean, request DHCP lease, return. Yep. That's going to be comparing if these two things are equal, which is definitely going to be a Boolean. Return none means this probably just doesn't have a return. Maintain DHCP lease. Interesting. That looks like the last line. Is it the last line of the file? Could be at least a space at the end of the file, I would assume. Alright, it's hard to get to the actual file as it exists in the PR. Oh my gosh, streaming. Communicating. Hopefully you realize this is the broadcast chat. I am on a Monday. Nope. Yeah, well, I didn't send anything else in this chat. I would say maybe check your, Twitch notifications would be the only thing I would know of. I should be on both Twitch and YouTube. Maybe, you could try YouTube notifications as well if it's not sending you from the Twitch side. I'm not really sure how the Twitch notifications work. I do notice though, it's not consistent always. Like sometimes I get them, sometimes I don't. Sometimes they come to my phone, sometimes they come to my email, sometimes they don't come. Didn't have my tablet open. Oh yeah, I think it tries to be smart enough to figure out which device you're on and send it there. I think it's probably not actually good enough at knowing which device you're on, and so sometimes the behavior that it ends up using is a little bit weird. This is interesting. I wonder if we have more code here that's not showing. Surely there should be, at minimum, an empty line down here. I find odd that it doesn't show either, like I would expect probably one of these things, maybe like just a blue one that's shows some more code. Maybe it just doesn't bother with the rest of the file. I think what I'm going to do is clone this and look at the code locally as well. So we're inside DHCP file so that I can come back to there. I should probably clone the Adafruit one, and then we'll GH. CD. I don't think I have this yet. I haven't gotten to the habit of actually checking to see if a thing exists yet. I should copy, actually, a bunch of the stuff from the other one, although there's more interested in work repos, I guess, than CircuitPython repos. Let's get that opened up. Right. It's kind of inconvenient to open other things from the open recent inside of this project. Why do I keep doing this? Recent is where we want to go. Or I guess the opposite, rather. Open recent. Open recent is easy, but open is not easy because it opens you in the folder where it exists, and the folder where it exists is a different place. Well, it's not though, because it's right here, but it opens me somewhere else. It opens me in the thumb drive, basically. Yeah. Set the interpreter to base. I don't know why. I need to figure out how to pull to the base interpreter. They're updated that thing, huh? Name issue. Look into that one. I have a Ethernet Featherwing here to test with as well, so I'll try that out in a little while. Probably take me a minute to get through the typing, but AIO post. Oh, these are examples. It's me on DHCP. Does this actually end 526? Okay, that was the last line, but there is, it's the last line of actual code, but there is a blank line. Interesting. Just doesn't show it in the GitHub. All right, maintain. Yeah. So this one had the doc strings up here before, and in a lot of the classes, it seems like they've been moved down. I think the I've only been through 2 or 3 so far, but they've all had this where the doc strings got moved down. So interface is a WizNet. DNS address is union of string or with 4 ints. IP address, or just IP address as a string. Bug false. This seems odd. Empty byte string instead of 0? So it used to say string. It's been changed to bytes, but it was a 0, which would have been obviously an int. I don't even know if host name is the same thing as host, truthfully though, I guess. PV4 address, or -1. Yeah, host by name. Host name came in here as bytes. Yeah, I don't know. That's, I think, a different thing. We'll have to refer back to this. This seems a bit odd. I guess it's probably just initializing it to what is essentially a null value anyway, but seems like an odd change. It's probably somewhere where the types got adjusted that it makes sense. Receives and parses. Did we lose the doc string here? No, okay, I see. Receive, parse DNS query response. Desired host name. Obtained. Requested instead of desired. Query request. Matching there. We don't have any actual arguments on this one. Identifier. Build. Changed the tense or whatever. Is that verb tense? I don't know. It's probably not the right term, but the perspective of writing or whatever is one of the other changes. Like it used to be with an S returns, saying like it returns, and now it's just return. Well, return is part of syntax though, I think. But this is a similar one where this isn't code. There's nothing really interpreting this. This is all just English, but none. Question, DNS a query, build a DNS query. I would assume query is probably a more technical name. I don't have that much experience myself, but I'm gonna guess that they don't. Yeah, query known as okay, request, we saw that before. A demand for information, wow, geez. Look up. And this is going to be like people asking questions about DNS. Yeah, interview questions. Makes sense. TP. I see you had no notification. I don't know what kind of a device. I would say check your Twitch notifications is the best kind of advice I could give. I mean, I could drop something in here when I start. I don't know. maybe try subscribe on YouTube separately if Twitch is where you're getting notifications through. Otherwise, check your Twitch notifications and check, like, see if there's a per channel additional thing you have to turn on, or maybe you can specify it. Like, if you have the option and it's applicable to you, see if you can specify which device you want it to go to. Because, like I was saying to DJ Devin a bit ago, sometimes Twitch, they send the notifications to different devices, and it's like, you don't always see it, or my experience is, at least, I don't always see it because it goes to a different place, or sometimes it just doesn't come at all. So I've had that experience as well, but I've never dug around the Twitch notification settings. I think there are a fair amount in there, though. I've seen them in there looking at other settings and stuff. Some double comment up here. That's interesting. Double comment pound signs. Where those came from. Didn't even know that Pico had Ethernet. Looked up the WizNet. It's cool, like the Ethernet Featherwing. Yeah. I didn't know about that device either. That there was a Ethernet to Pico connectable device. That's pretty sweet. You could make such a cheap little kind of like IoT thing, like run a little server or ping an API and get some data. Pico's just... How's it going, Keith E? Hope everybody's doing well. Yep. Second that one as well. Hope you're doing well in addition to all of us this morning, Keith. Thanks for tuning in. WizNet NTP address is a string. UTC is a float. Seems odd. I guess it's oh, it changed from int, actually. Number of hours to offset from UTC. Enable debugging output. Oh, well, it's typed int here, actually, but it's bool here. Interesting. You do that with the Pico W. That's true, but the Ethernet is just such a, like, more reliable connection. I don't know. If you're going to be relying on it, like, over the long term or anything, Ethernet's kind of unbeatable. Wi-Fi is just got ghosts in it sometimes that make no sense but make stuff not work. And Ethernet does too, but they're a bit more rare. Again, in my experience only, though. It depends what you want it to do too, though, right? I mean, if it's a server that's like you want to download stuff quickly from it or something and the speed matters, then Ethernet can also presumably transfer faster, although I guess your bottleneck is probably not transferring. I don't actually know the bottleneck. Maybe the computing power on the thing is too slow, truthfully, though. Maybe that's where your real slowness is going to come from. String for the address, WizNet for the object, possibly int, possibly float. We'll try to determine this one. Like, once we get into the testing phase of this operation, I can try passing an int and passing a float, seeing if it makes a difference. Get time returns a time struct. Time.time struct. Interesting. Time struct. Not that I've ever seen that typed that way before, time struct. Is that a thing that exists? CircuitPython? Struct time? Is it time struct or struct time? Struct time. Interesting. That's good to know. Good one to file away. Probably DDoS. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it can only handle like I think one, or I'm pretty sure it can only handle like one request. So definitely. No, yeah, Pi-hole, I wouldn't do something like that. I'm thinking something more like it provides some data, probably. Like it has a sensor connected to it and it provides some data to the network or something. Provides something that other clients on the network can request, but not like, certainly not like running all the DNS traffic through it or anything like that. I'm in seconds. Is struct time, does it mean time in seconds since the epoch? Or is it like an object? It sounds more like it would be like an object. Can I just create one? Fix one positional argument. Int is not a tuple or a list. That is true. Int is not a tuple or a list. That is accurate. That is still accurate. I don't know what it wants, though. Probably, I mean, realistically, it doesn't want to be created that way. Is probably the real answer. It's to be created with some other function. You know, I suppose we could look in here. This thing's going to return one of them. This returns cal. Cal dot. Yeah, well, it's tricky. I don't know. Depends what UTC is, probably. Of course, this is the old way. Okay, new way is actually the same. It's just wrapped in int. Means cal is an int, and then cal gets set into time.local time. I passed it. Oh, time.local time. Local time. T equals time.local time. Int. Timestamp out of range. Stamp out of range. Work time. Okay, it is more like an object, but it has an epoch time somehow, probably, right? Oh, maybe not. TM. Wait, it doesn't like TST. Doesn't seem like it, huh? Maybe float. Some offsets are half hours. What happens if you're in one of the offsets that are a half hour? An example? Okay, yours use local time too, or this one, current Unix time. Oh, time struct gets created from a local time. So local time is not a thing that this returned. Okay, that is a struct time. But then you can also still pass it to time struct. Does it change it? Script time? I think these are the same object. But then format is the fun stuff that you can do with it. Nice. Do we have an implementation of the formatter that uses those letters and stuff? I don't, there's probably a better name for this, but these things? Strf time? That might be a fun thing to implement, he says, without having actually given it too much thought. It'd probably be really hard, actually, because of all the obscure time stuff. The output would be fun to implement. The input, maybe not as much. The datetime library. Is that where strf time? Do we have that one? No, module datetime. Doesn't actually say where it came from in this page. I think you're right though. Yeah, I think it's like datetime dot strf time. Yeah, or date dot strf time. It might be cool to have an outputter. Nice. Thanks for the link. I keep on top of my tabs today before I get out of control. Version of datetime in CircuitPython is very minimal. Don't know if that's due to size. Yeah, it could be. I mean, we could have a Python layer one. Maybe there is, I guess. Fair enough. Yeah, there's a Python one. Does it have? Oh, and then it has from ISO format. Does it have the strf time though? Look at examples. Time delta simple test. The format. Time delta is really useful. Oh, no strf time. Not yet, at least. If one exists, I couldn't find one. This, yeah, it doesn't have strf time, but the datetime library has a couple of things. That'd be a fun thing to try and add, though. I think, like I said, maybe until I get into it, maybe it's a lot harder than I'm thinking. The parsing would be much more difficult, and sounds like really probably requires some regex experience that I don't quite have. Although maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that'd be a good reason to finally cut my tooth on regex a bit. But outputting, I think, would be fairly straightforward. Love to be able to set time from seconds since epoch instead of time struct. That would be nice. Yeah. Set time, do you mean when you create, do you mean like with that datetime object or with these ones like we used here? Like when you create one of these things. So I would say that'd be kind of nice too, for sure, if you could just put milliseconds in there. Or seconds, either one. Although our epoch is different though, right? It's probably, there's probably a technical reason, because our epoch is actually treated as 2000 instead. Would we use that as the determining 0, or would we use 1970 still? The interface? This is one of these ones that's a typed variable. So instead of a function return or argument, this is just like a variable in the code. There's a variable called the_interface, used to be set equal to none. Now it is still set equal to none, but has a typing on it. And at one point in time, I think this was not supported by MPY maybe or something. At one point in time, I ran into trouble with this. I'm pretty sure that I since tested it again in a different library. Did not have the same trouble, but this will be something else to double check, is just make sure we are using this file to make sure this is actually working. We'll use the MPY variant as well, because I want to say there was something where like either the MPY didn't build or it built but then it didn't run or something. I remember having an issue, seeing an issue with this, with typed variables as opposed to arguments and returns. But I also think I remember it working on a subsequent time, like trying it a few months later or something. Two versions of different stuff in the mix. Okay, def is up here. I see helper to set the global internet interface. HTONL, HTONL, convert a 32-bit positive integer from host to network byte order. Host to ONL, ONL? Host to NL, network L? I don't know what the name is supposed to be. Network language? It's basically the same. But they did 2000, I think. Host to online. Oh, host to online could be, yeah. I think it would be true epochs. Should always be 1970 to avoid subtle errors. That might be impossible. Yeah, my guess is that they did 2000 because of the size, but I don't actually know either. If it can't support 1970, though, I do think that's kind of a reason not to be able to create them from seconds, because then it's ambiguous. You would be like, it could work, but it would have to count from 2000, but some people will assume it's going to count from 1970. That's what CPython does, so we could have it, I guess, and it could be a difference, but it might be tricky. Host is a string, port is an int, family is an int, default to 0, socket type, or roto, flags, turns list, tuple, int, string, tuple, int, address, info, entries, list, tuple. So we would assume then this int, string, there's our tuple. String, port, int. Why is it a list? Get address info. Am I missing something? Why is it a list? It always returns one thing. It always returns a list with a tuple inside of it. Get address info. Is there ever a situation where this could return multiple things? Like inside this list? Feels odd that it would give you a list with one item all the time, instead of just giving you the tuple by itself. That's not on the typing though, right? It's typed the same way it's written, so as far as this PR, I think that's fine. But that does strike me as odd. Really messed up the first time I worked with it, mentioned epoch, but spitting out 2000. Yeah. But if it's like a literal just don't have enough room to store a bigger number, then like there's not a lot of things that could be done to change it, unfortunately. I do agree it does make time, which is already tricky, even harder, but if you don't have enough room to store the number, you don't have enough room to store the number. Or to kind of flip it around on its head the other way, if you have a chip which has enough room to store the number, your chips probably cost a lot more, I assume. I'm like probably not the person to be able to know, truthfully, though. I don't really know the trade-offs or like anything about designing it or how you could swap it and make it use a bigger number or anything like that. But I assume there are trade-offs somewhere. And cost would be my best guess, but like I don't really know. I do know time is tricky. I don't like writing code that deals with it. Turn a string, take a string. Yep, that checks out. Get host by name. Let's double check that. That wasn't the one that took bytes, was it? On 118 inside socket. Oh, we don't actually see it. Get host by name. It does return bytes though. Doesn't matter though what it returns because this gets immediately set into a string. We know it's a string because it's hard coded as a string. Yeah, that's a good point as well too. Yeah, if you've never actually used Unix epoch, if you're not used to epoch or it being 1970 because you've never used it, then you have a slightly different problem. You don't get tripped up by it when you learn it the first time as 2000, but if you then go on to branch into other computing and suddenly every other platform treats it as 30 years prior, then you get the same confusion. It just doesn't come when you're getting into CircuitPython. It comes when you're getting out of CircuitPython and into some other platform. That is interesting, though. I wonder. There's probably people like that. That would be kind of fascinating. Check if hostname is an IPv4 address. This is basically like fancy if statement, regex type, match it, make sure it has periods. Make sure each period is separated by a number that is less than 256. This is neither here nor there. This is neither here nor there. Is digit? Wouldn't this get thrown off by things less than 0? This feels like this would get thrown off by things less than 0. But maybe not. Maybe is digit. Maybe is digit. Somehow is digit might check for negatives. Is IPv4. This is on socket. Let's just try this out if we can. This is not really part of the PR. This is mostly my curiosity getting the better of me. Being like, I wonder if this actually filters out the negatives. Based on the code, it doesn't look like it does, but I don't know. Is digit is the bit of this code I'm not actually sure of the specific exact behavior of what that's going to do, so maybe that somehow accounts for it. This was in here, I think. was it called? Is IPv4. Oh, it was inside socket, my bad. Maybe negatives are valid too, I don't know. I assume negatives would not be valid, but I guess I also don't know that for a fact. So we should be able to go from Wisnet, Wisnet 5k dot, wait, that's quite the name, huh? Socket. Alright, let's start nice and easy. Nope, somehow it works. Interesting. What, where does isDigit come from? Now I'm actually curious. I guess not. Empty space join octets. So octets would be host equals octets join empty space dot join. It's gonna put them back together as a smushed together string. IsDigit. False. I don't recall ever seeing this function used. Just test it if it's a number, I guess? Digits only. Interesting. Simplified socket for connecting to Isnet. This is just another one of the spots where the doc strings have moved down below. Or I mean, like they were right inside the class and now they're below. They're inside the function now. I don't know if one or the other is correct or incorrect, but this one has moved to be more consistently this way. Simplified implementation. So we have int socket stream. Seems a bit odd. Oh. Interesting. Because it doesn't matter much. I mean, it feels like like int would be right if it's going to be a 0 there, but I suppose 0 is part of any as well. At the end of the day, if it's unused, then it really doesn't matter either way. This is inside socket. We could check a couple of these. Let's make sure these are actually ints. I'm sure they are, but GitHub doesn't make it super easy to check on them. Let's see where we're at here. 149. We're actually pretty close. That's a constant, which will be an int. Fortunately, that took me away from Extreme. Yeah. I don't know if there's a way to just go back where you came from. Control left, or double shift, and then back. Alt shift left? Oh, that is really hard for me to do though. Okay, that's pretty convenient as an action, but I'll have to change it if I'm gonna use it. That's really helpful though. I use control click a lot. I never knew how to get back. Alt control left, that's what I'm doing there. So control click lets me go through to where this is declared. Alt shift left lets me go back to right where I was when I control clicked. Super handy, but the way my keyboard is, Alt shift left is actually really hard to do. I guess maybe if I use this, I don't know. I'll have to figure out something. We'll have to figure out what's the best place to put it. Try to remember it for now. Prototype any file number, optional int is none. It's probably not, it's probably not number, is it? File no, I don't know. Not used anyway. These are any here and int here. Does it matter? Okay, I'll be back in just a second. Gotta put up the sun blocker. Oh. This tab's weird. Okay. Let's see. It's none. These don't have any types here. Close socket. I don't know what those would be though. I guess we could modify the code to print the type, and then we could make a with context. I'm pretty sure this will get called when a with context closes, so we could add prints in here to print the type of each of them. Then make a context, close it, it'll call this do our prints. Does it use these things? I'll look at PyCharm, it's actually a bit easier to see. something is used or not, because if I click it, it'll highlight if it's used, but look like it. Interesting. Okay. So we could try that. I'm not sure. Not sure it matters too much if they're unused and they're part of the kind of boilerplate that makes the with context work. It's not quite as important, like a user is never going to be calling this. They're easy to figure out. They'd be nice to have, I guess, but they don't necessarily make it any easier to use, which is really the main motivation for typing, so. Returns an int. Socket number. Status is also an int. Connected is a boolean. Get peer name. Returns string byte array. Or it may return a byte array. Byte array. Optional string int. Find the socket. Find the socket to the listen port. If the host is specified, the interface will be reconfigured to that IP address. It says host port tuple. Host may be an IPv4 address, string, or it could be none. Port number is a range. Backlog optional. Accept the connection. Socket must be bound to an address and listening for connections. I think that's nice to kind of put that by itself because it seems important. Return value is a pair, connection address, where connection is a new socket object, usable to send and receive data on the connection. An address is. The address bound to the socket on the other end of the connection. Okay. Socket nums, so we can continue listening. Tuple, socket, tuple union, string byte array, union, int byte array. There's our none, so that's why it's optional. Tuple, it's client sock, and then an address. Socket here. Where does address come to, though? Come from, rather. I'm blind here? Where does address come from? Where we were in socket still around 220. We're on 320. Ah, there it is. I could accept returns both. There's our string or for tuple of ints, our IP address, and we actually have a tuple of those with an int. Probably has the port with it also. Yeah. It's weird how many different ways there are of expressing IP addresses in this. I feel like we've seen now tuples of ints, we've seen strings, we've seen byte arrays of bytes, which are ints kind of. I think maybe that's it, but that's 3 different ways in the same file for expressing an IP address. Which feels like a lot to me. Some of these maybe though are to keep compatibility. Maybe this is just how CPython has some of this stuff. There's an exception if set to 3. What's so magic about 3? Raises an exception if set to 3. Connect to a remote socket. Huh. Unused otherwise. What? That must be copying the API, I guess. Oh, okay, TLS, I see. Is that true? Not exactly true, is it? Yeah, I misunderstand. I mean, we can use some HTTPS stuff on CircuitPython. Is that not... Maybe we can't use it through the Ethernet port, I guess? I've assumed we could, because I haven't tried. So then I suppose 3 must be the type for that. So it's saying if you set it to type 3, then we know it's going to fail because we don't support that. Interesting, though. I wonder. It's array. Return none. Buffer size int flags any. We've had a few of these ones where it's like one in one place and another in a different place. I don't think I necessarily have strong opinions on which one it should be, but I do think they should probably be consistent. Although I guess in this case, like, int is an any, like, int is more specific than any, but any includes int, so maybe the difference doesn't matter as much as I think. I feel like consistency is probably best, but maybe that feeling is not accurate. Return bytes. I guess in this case, the doc strings didn't actually change. Maybe that's why. Supported on Ethernet Featherwing. HTTPS, I assume you mean, wasn't supported on 32 v2 until recently, maybe just not supported on the Pico yet. Jeff will probably know. I haven't messed with 32 v2 at all. Somebody was asking a question about that over the weekend. I was looking into that device on the pinouts and different stuff about it, and I was like, get one of these days. I don't think I have one. I haven't ever used one. I don't really recall ever learning about it when it came out. It must have been one that I missed. I suppose we should choose the one that CPython is typed as. Which I would assume is probably int, but... Here. Alright, here we go. Playlist finished up. Do new tunes running here. V2 is just cited for its Rev 2 of the classic 32. Only ran MicroPython. Yeah, that's the main thing. I always never did mess too much with ESP32s because they didn't have CircuitPython. I had a Huzzah feather Huzzah or something like that, which was pretty cool. It was like a internet capable. Could write Arduino code for it. And I have not gone back and messed with any ESP32s since the workflow was added. Rev 2. Should go back and play with some of that stuff though. I did like the Feather Huzzah. I never did, like, I only did a few things with it because I never did get super deep into Arduino, but read from the connected remote, return the bytes. Size is int, flags. Yeah, okay. Oh. It's another one? It's another one. Number of bytes to receive, ignored by the function, defaults to 0. All data. This one has any on flags, so this one does have them consistent. Bytes, tuple, string int. Return. Receive. Yeah. This one also has any. More versions of ESPs than Linux distros now to keep track of. That's true. Definitely don't have my head wrapped around all the Linux distros either. Receive from into. Reads data from the connected remote address into the provided buffer. Byte array, number of bytes, flags, returns, tuple int string. This is another one where, oh, they are actually different. Read some bytes from the connected remote address into the provided buffer. It's, I think, the same as the previous function was, maybe. Close, at least. Many bytes as we can, but not including the carriage return and line feed. Character? Is that supposed to be character pair? Make sure I spelled it right though, because I'm like, know myself to be terrible at spelling. Just missing a C, I think, right? Disconnect, returns none, close, returns none. How many bytes of data were available? Int. Got changed from float to int, or vice versa, from int to float. Timeout period should be non-negative. Set timeout, so we should make sure that set timeout works with int floats. I'll try to pass a float into that if we can. That's on socket. That's definitely something to test. Get timeout, float, turns timeout in seconds. 9 seconds or none if no timeout set. VSGI server. This is another one of the variables that's typed. Location. Start returns none, update polls returns none, update poll, excuse me. Finish response, result, string client socket returns none, string socket, start response, status string, response headers list of tuple string string, returns none, string string. Bucket, it's dictionary of data. Environment. Yeah. All right. I think those are the main things I have for changing. I think that's who this was, right? Yeah. Oh, I looked at this one. I don't think it loaded before, unless I collapsed that somehow. Let's take a look through this one, I guess. It's got moved. Line. These must have got moved here. Should this be a digital I/O or should it be a microcontroller.pin? Sometimes you just pass in like board.whatever. Wish I could get back to the repo from here without scrolling. So I could go to PyCharm. No, yeah, it creates digital I/O. All right. This could just be board.spy. In fact, we'll need to make this board.spy because the device that I'm going to test this with is going to be a Feather TFT, which has the display on the SPY bus already initialized when it boots up. So by the time our code runs, it will already have the SPY bus, and this will fail to create. We'll have to use board.spy. DHCP boolean true, optional for the reset pin. List of ints or a tuple of ints for the MAC address, default MAC. What's default MAC? Good beef. Tuple of ints. Gotta take off, have a good day. Yep, so take it easy. DJ Devin, have a good day as well for you. MAC address, yep. Host name, optional string, float. Debug. Name with the optional squirrely brackets to fill in the MAC address. To fill in the MAC address? I mean IP address? You wouldn't really put a MAC address in the host name, would you? I don't know what that means for sure. Is this Does it get past here? Host name? It doesn't. Wisnet. Optional, just comes in as none. Truly, that must mean, I feel like that must mean IP address, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not. $30 seconds. Enable debugging, defaults to false. Optional string. Float. Personally, I prefer if that's going to be float to make that 30.0. I don't know if that really matters though. Grand scheme of things. Like if I were writing it out, that's how I would write it, but I don't know if it's worth if it's important enough to ask to change. Doesn't really make that much of a difference, I don't think, but I like the consistency of the value actually being the type that the type thing says. Like, even though 30 kind of implicitly is 30.0, but optional string. Maintain, returns none. Maintain the lease. Get host by name. Actually saw this inside socket or somewhere. We saw this one earlier. This must just be wrapped though. Host name is a string, returns bytes. Max sockets. Int. Script returns string. IP address returns byte array. Pretty IP turns it into a string from the byte array. Unpretty IP converts a string into the byte array that represents it. Interesting, okay. MAC address sets the hardware's MAC address. That's how MAC addresses are supposed to be, right? You can just set the hardware's MAC address? Pretty MAC? This is basically the same thing as the IP one. This is just getting the MAC address variant with the colons in between. Same kind of deal though, where it's just like stores it as a byte array events, but we're used to looking at it in a different format. Interestingly, we're used to looking at the MAC address in hex and the IPv4 in decimal, but they are really the same. Things. It's kind of weird that we don't. It's kind of weird that we use different, right? Isn't it? Is hex 0 to E or 0 to F? Goes 0 to 255 in decimal? Union string byte array, 4-byte IP. Physical hardware returns 1 if the link is up, 0 if the link is down. Remote port union returns int byte array, port number of the socket connection. Does this change behavior at all? I think so, right? Rente. Yeah. Tuple with 3 byte arrays, a 4 tuple of ints. With 3 byte arrays and then an IP address, I guess. ifconfig. IP address, subnet mask, gateway address, and then DNS server address. Interesting. Return two things that are both IP addresses, but really we return, I guess, even more than that. Return four things that are all IP addresses, but one of them is in a different format. Same thing here. That's the if. Oh, okay, that's just the setter. Whereas you can set all that stuff that way. Init returns 1 if it succeeds, 0 if it fails. Detect returns 1 if the chip's detected, -1 if not. Soft reset. 0 if it succeeds, -1 if not. Read the mode register. Returns byte array. Returns none. Data int. Read data from a register address. Callback reference. Returns writable buffer and byte array. Data read from the chip. Returns none. Available. Socket type int. Return int. Number of bytes available to read. Num is a number. Int. Optional. How's it going, Dave Odessa? Bit late. Yeah, no worries. Just getting some PR reviews going in on this fine Monday morning. Hope you're having a nice day. Socket number, returning optional byte array. Number, returns the same thing in the doc strings there, nice. Number int, union for destination, bytes, byte array. Open and verify a connection from a socket to a destination IP address or host name. TCP is made by default. UDP can also be made. Socket num, destination, port, connection mode, initialize. And socket command returns none. Send a command to the socket. Socket. Okay, and return a socket. Cycle through the sockets to find the first available one, if any. First available socket. Return 0xFF if no sockets are free. Return sock. I mean, I guess it's going to be a socket number rather than an actual socket. Which does feel odd for a thing called getSocket, but listen, number, port, connection mode, returns none. There's our initialize again. Probably got copy pasted from before. Socket accept. The next socket number so listening can continue along with the IP address. Socket number int. Connection to check returns tuple of int and then tuple of string or byte array, int or byte array. Is socket number, destination IP address, destination port. error occurs, destination IP address and or port may be returned as byte arrays. So this is pretty similar signature to what we've seen before. Int for the num, connection mode, defaults to TCP, which is the same we've seen in a bunch of places now. Returns 1 if it was open, 0 if not. I will say that is a bit odd, right? We had one before that returned 0 on success. This one feels like it returns 0 on failure, which is a bit odd as far as I know. I think 0 is usually treated as a success return. But maybe this is copying an API that was like made somewhere else and shows that. Wish it was Friday. Wish it was Friday. I'd be with you there. That'd be nice. Nice to just go right into another weekend. Would not argue with that. Socket num int returns none. Socket disconnect int returns none. Socket read int length is int returns tuple of int and then int or byte array. So this is probably the let's see, number of bytes and then the port or something like that. Read was successful, and the first item will be the length of the data. Second, or the socket number, probably not the port. If the read was unsuccessful, both items equal an error code, 0 for no data waiting, -1 for no connection. Interesting. Read UDP. Socket num, yeah, this is basically the same as what we saw before. Length of the data. You're right. Number, byte array buffer, float. It's another one where, like, if I were doing it, I would make this 0.0 probably, but in the current scheme of things, I don't know. I don't really know if it's like incorrect the way it is, so I know that it's worth changing. Bytes written to the buffer. Free size of sockets TX buffer. Sockets int. Surely, I mean, this must be socket number again. I would, if I were writing that, I would probably name that socket number if that's an accurate understanding of what it is, but I don't actually have doc strings for this one. It doesn't seem like this is a internal though, I suppose, so read s and rxrd int data none int return none socket int and returns an int because it's read socket optional byte array rsr optional byte array. The destination port, send port, socket int, port int, it's none, SNRS, byte array. This is kind of a big one. I didn't even realize before about the way I was scrolled. This was actually hidden through this whole one without doing like the biggest file, I guess. Int destination port int optional byte array. Protocol int none. This is like a bunch of different ways to write. I don't know what these SNMR, SNIR, SNCR, I don't know what all these different ways. These are all like different ways to read and write though. int byte array. Address? Read socket address? Socket register? Okay, yeah. This is a an I2C address or whatever, a register address, not an IP address. And optional byte array. What happened here, I wonder? R1? Is that a thing? Does that that mean something for typing? I don't think I've ever seen that before. This feels like maybe a leftover thing. Yeah. I don't think I've seen that. But I mean, it's also like I haven't seen all of every syntax ever, certainly. So, like, it could just be a thing that does mean something that I don't know about. It's definitely a possibility. Oh wow, been a lot of action over on Helplet this morning. 104 messages since the last time I was over there. Trying to make my Python programs into different groups. Matrix portal. Need these two lines, but I can't have both because it gives an error. Okay. CircuitPython dev, lots of stuff in Thonny land. Last couple of days, I feel like I've seen Thonny issues go by in a few of the different channels. Not sure what they mean, programs into different groups. I mean, like, the same program with different display IO groups, showing different stuff on the screen at different times? Or do they mean more like groups of programs, like these are my Twitch programs, and these are my Twitter programs, and these are my other programs, or whatever. In which case they wouldn't be running at the same time, I suppose, so it must mean somehow combining multiple things into one, otherwise there shouldn't be a problem with initializing the same thing again, I suppose, yeah. We'll see if they can post some more code using the network for a clock Python code. Is that a no, you can't post more of your code, or is that a... I mean, this has network inside of it. Portal network. When you create matrix portal, it creates portal base. This creates graphics. This creates network. Does all of its stuff. Network.get local time. I mean, I'm not running the code right now. I don't have my matrix portal out. Pretty sure this is just, where you should be able to do something like this. Other M0, RFM96, yikes. Those are some of the toughest. Those are some of the toughest ones, like space-wise. One of my research students was trying to enable a data serial port in BootPy using CDC API. It appears somehow got into a state where we cannot see CircuitPy. Is there a way to fully reset it so that it does not use incorrect BootPy? I try to update the bootloader and reflash. Can you access REPL? If you could get to the REPL, you could go storage erase file system. Hopefully there's nothing important on it. But if you can't access it anyway, then like this kind of just stands as hopefully there's nothing important on it, unfortunately. This is over in the help with channel, by the way. I'm not just talking to myself about matrix portals and REPLs over here. I will try to set this up to test. So I'm gonna need more things. I'm gonna need feather that has pins, first of all. Feather I have here has no pins. I think we probably want the feather tripler. Feather doubler has my neo key on it. That's my time stamper for the meeting. And I only have one doubler and one tripler. Unfortunately, it's not all I can do is boot into bootloader mode and see the radio boot. So there is a Nuke UF2, but I don't know if there is one for that device or if you need a special one. And also, I don't know where to find it. I don't know if this is, it's like every device. Can every device use this, or? Yeah, I don't know if you could use the RP2041 or if that's specific, or this is gonna work. CircuitPython. I don't want to point them directly to the Raspberry Pi Pico page, because that could be specific to the Pico. And if it is, then I assume it's probably a good way to brick your device, so that's not good. You run it on a different device, but I don't know where you would find the other. Like, in my memory, I'm imagining a Learn Guide page which basically has, like, I want to say maybe like half a dozen of those buttons. It has like a bunch of these buttons with different like reset UF2s. This is a factory reset UF2. Feather M0. Somehow I had to recover mine with the J-Link reflashing something. Dan, oh yeah, I'm glad to see Dan H is typing. Dan was the one who walked me through doing that though. I have no idea. They said they can't get REPL. I tried that already. Oh well. We got Dan on the case. Dan will definitely be able to help them a lot more than I will be able to. We'll know if the nuke thing exists or what to try if not, or how to do that, what to do next. All right, I'm gonna run and grab some more hardware. I gotta get the tripler, the feather. That should be, I think, what we need. Yeah, and then I got an Ethernet cable there. Yeah. All right, I'll be back in just a second. Get this one making those changes. Open weather graphics, type error list. Indices must be integer, not string. I mean, I don't know, my friend, I gotta get you to post some more of your code. Yeah, I mean, I think they can't access their stuff to back. It's a good reminder, I guess. Non-express eraser. Ah, welcome to CircuitPython troubleshooting for SAMD21. Is that the guide I was in? It was maybe close. Also, tunes have pop. Oh. So it was this one. NAU 7802. I'm not familiar. ADC. 24-bit ADC. With a Raspberry Pi 4. Connecting it through a Seed Studio CAN bus board. Followed the procedure mentioned there to interface through Python. I try to run simple test. Name error, I2C device, driver not defined. NAU 7802. I don't know that we'll be able to offer much help on this, but I'll take a look. I2C device driver not defined. Sounds like something's not imported or something like that, maybe. Yeah, unfortunately, I will say Discord is a little tough sometimes, like, to follow who's talking to who. I mean, you can reply, and it says who you replied to, but you don't use Discord very much, it's challenging sometimes to keep track of who's talking to who. Threads, I suppose, could kind of help some, but... Did this download? Oh, I see. Probably we don't want to do this. Yeah, my guess is we would want... my guess is this will happen inside of here. So we should maybe just do this first. And then we should be able to access matrix and display, I think. Should have more examples, maybe. I have scrolling Bitcoin and simple tests. There's so much room between scrolling Bitcoin and simple test and all the other things this library can do. Matrix portal extends portal base. When you init it, it creates graphics, it creates network, it calls super. See collect, add text. It doesn't look like it is actually calling matrix, but it must be inside of graphics. Yeah, graphics is importing matrix, graphics space. That's creating matrix right there. Does this do anything if you're not setting it to anything? Where did this code come from? Said line 64. Still line 60. Display weather. Open weather graphics. Weather graphics. I checked from this one also. No Adafruit driver? Must be though, right? Oh, no. Oh, okay. No, it is community bundle. Cedar Grove. Nice. C. Grover. Providing drivers. But for connecting to the CDO CAN bus board? And give the full stack trace. I mean, I would assume this line tries internally. So is something internally creating a 92C device driver? Voltage, conversion rate. One's just in a use 7802, doesn't have device driver or anything. I2C device. Where did that come from? This device. Probably they need bus device installed. Is it in the requirements or anything? Is there a requirements? Let's say bus device here. Let's have bus device here as well. Did the instructions say anything? Also, I guess for one thing though, this is computer. This is on into CircuitPython. So yeah, they don't say ever to use like pip install requirements or anything. This is probably not necessarily, I don't know, sudo cp. I don't know if this is the best way to install either. It would also kind of depend on which CircuitPython you have, or not CircuitPython, but Python. Features portal. Well, right, it would be graphics matrix, my bad. I think it would be graphics matrix. Oh boy, we're doing this again with the replying to the other person. I need to not help two people, I guess. Okay, matrix portal acquired, USB cable acquired. I think I ran into trouble last time I used this by not having enough power because I was on the hub. So I got an extra cable. We're gonna plug her into the directly into the box. Really need this Velcro on here, but I also don't want it to just get lost. It's like grabbing onto my gloves. Doing this wrong. No. It's not bad. Wrap it up as best we can. It's quite fancy for you. That we need all this. So it's like hard side out now. Go hard side. Sorry, I haven't had the What's up in a minute? Yeah. That could be too. That sounds right, actually. I've not checked in on the chats in a long while. I know. So I don't know where is open weather graphics. He didn't actually answer, I don't think, the question about where that came from. GitHub of open weather. I don't know though, it's unclear to me, I guess, what this person is really trying to do. A bit difficult to have them kind of reveal the larger picture truthfully. Display weather. Muted. Why does this think it's playing? GitHub, it doesn't play sounds. Does it play sounds? Why is it playing a sound? Where did our, oh, it's not GitHub, this is Adafruit, I see. Has a video, I guess? Video? CircuitPy65 the one calling this? Let's see if their code is the same. Data source, not quite. They do actually create metrics. Yeah, maybe I pointed them in the wrong direction. It's tough. I don't really know what they're trying to do, I guess. They should have probably persisted more. Combine that with the matrix clock demo. I mean, one thing about the Matrix Portal class, it's very, as far as I understand it, like you kind of fetch one thing at a time. Maybe when we fetch this, I don't know why this thinks it's playing sound. because this already, this is the weather one, and it does already have the local time stuff. Graphics update time, though. Update time is different. This doesn't show the time. Okay, so this person's trying to show the weather and the time on the Matrix portal, which is understandable. The codes works when it's the... see, and I have to cut out probably here before too long to start getting ready for the meeting. I need to eat lunch also. I never did get into trying the Ethernet thing yet either. Oof, just doing the turn everything red. But I went to the power. Hopefully it has enough power on the USB port I'm in. Not have any other code files? Yeah, I would have had other code files. Did I just wreck this? Not, I guess. Maybe I wrecked it some time in the past. Actually, I do recall the red. The red messed us up. Yeah, this matrix, this is actually the last thing I tested. Group test. I spelled group wrong, but whatever. But we have enough room. Yeah. This, honestly, this, my best recommendation is get rid of the Matrix Portal library. The Matrix Portal library is really good at doing showing one thing. Once you're trying to show another thing, the Matrix Portal library is going to be making it more complex rather than less, in my experience. Although I don't have that much experience with it, so maybe it's like... maybe I'm not the best one to judge, but I find it's really good for, like, fetch one thing from an API, show it however you want. But then once it's like fetch one thing from this API, fetch another thing from here, fetch another thing, and then like switch between them or whatever, it gets a lot trickier. Text scroller is another thing. I don't know if they meaning to bring in text scroller. It's kind of like a third thing into the mix. Don't know. VLC? Sure. Blinka VLC plugins. I don't know what Blinka would be doing. Blinka VLC? Get IO data. They did ask about I know my matrix portal had other code on it because I know one of the scripts that was on it. I know this is almost just like a different question, I guess, or use network setup. Is there a way to program the text scroller without needing matrix portal setup? Or use network? Gonna head out, ran into an issue needing to debug. Yep, take it easy, Keith. This was from a little while ago as well, so you may be gone now, but hoping you're having a nice day. Thanks for hanging out for a bit. I think this person kind of wants to knows what they want to do and just started plastering together different projects, which is a good way to go, but it's tough. The portal projects in particular are it's tough to, you really need to know kind of more internally how it's working to be able to switch the displays around. It's not, and these things are further wrapped in like these graphics, like open weather graphics here, right? If you're not looking inside of here and figuring out what's going on, self-display. There's a group that has access to the display. An interesting way to do it. I do kind of like that. Show splash. I don't know. I don't. We extend a group, initialize a group, but then we initialize another group. On this bitmap tile grid. And this is the original guide code, right? This is not the person who's asking for help necessarily that wrote this. I do think this could probably use a once over from the display IO perspective. It feels odd to extend a group here, but then we're creating Splash as a group here. We're also doing super init. So like super init is creating an instance of group because that's what's parent. But then we're also just creating another empty instance of group here. And then we go on to create the onDis bitmap and a sprite, and then we add the sprite to the splash and show the splash. Create another group for root group, icon group, text group, scrolling group. I guess these are all getting appended to self, so we are coming in here now and using... Oh boy, this is getting crazy wild in here. So we create root group and then we append ourselves into root group. And then we're appending all of these ones into ourself. So we have an instance that is a group. We have a variable that is a group splash. Currently we're showing splash. We have a root group which contains ourself. And then our self contains icon group, text group, scrolling group. Create icons and a tile grid. I'll set icons. Yeah, the thing is, like, the code is not, it's not very conducive to just show this for a minute and then show that for a minute and back and forth. If it were refactored a bit, it could be more one contained thing. I mean, I will say this is a group, I guess, right? Open Weather Graphics, this is a group, and ultimately this group contains, I mean, everything except Splash. Splash is kind of on its own, doing its own thing here. Looks like this is during loading. After loading, though, I would assume at some point we get to showing self, and then theoretically we could hide self and show a different thing in the next level up of the code, but what is the right kind of example? I do think this points to like a missing... Still here. Gotta go now. Thanks, Tim. Yep. Take it easy, Dave Odessa. Hope you have a good day. Thanks for hanging out for a bit. I'll be heading out here in just a moment as well. I'm gonna some lunch and get my notes filled in for the weekly meeting. Haven't done that yet. Try to think though, like, what's the right way to make an example that someone could use for this? It's tough because like all the basic examples are the Portal libraries, and they just make it very easy. Put the API in, kind of tell it how to display, and then say go. I mean, one way would be try to figure that out. How do you do two of those? How can you make one run and then change one to another one? That's possible. What's the easiest way to do it, I wonder? I feel like this code we ended up with, they actually might have tried 3. I think we tried Open Weather Graphics, so the weather one, and then it looks like they tried to bring the quotes one into the mix as well, in addition to also the clock one. Graphics update time. I think does that exist in here? Yeah, it doesn't exist in this one, so they must have modified this to add update time. Which makes sense, like if you download the weather one, all the graphics stuff is contained inside of here. It does make sense as a place to try to change it. Is there a clock one? Or connected matrix clock? This is probably the one with update time. No, this actually just has CodePy. It doesn't have a... Maybe did it have update time here? It does. I see. Okay, so they moved update time from this onto that graphics object. Maybe what we'll try to do is make one example that brings these two together. It's tough though, because like, is it still going to be generally applicable, or is it really just going to be these two together? What I would like to do, hopefully, is make it easier for people to understand how to combine any two examples, but it's tough, right? All the different examples are going to be using the display differently. Alright, I think I'm gonna head out for now. Maybe we'll try that, maybe we'll attempt that later on. See if we can't combine these two, but try to keep it hopefully general enough that it's not just like these two and that's it. But I don't know. I don't know if we'll succeed in that goal or not, but it would be nice. And I have seen people attempting this general idea before of like, okay, I got my matrix portal, I made the most basic project with it, right? I made the clock, or I made the weather, or I made the quotes, or whatever. I made the first thing, now I made the second thing, and it works, and it's cool, and I can switch back and forth with CodePy, but how do I mash it together so that I don't have to change CodePy, but still can get multiple things? It'd be nice if we had something to point to as an example of that, and I don't know of a good one, so I'd be down to try to make one. So maybe we'll attempt that later on, see how we do. I do still want to test the Ethernet feather wing. I went and grabbed the tripler. I've got the feather here. I've got the actual feather wing. So we will test that out later as well. Just kind of sanity check it with the code from the PR to make sure. Really, the main thing is those variables that are typed, just as variables, not arguments or returns or anything else. Those are the one thing I'm unsure about in that library. So I definitely want to try building MPY, running it on advice, making sure that the Ethernet is all still working and stuff. So I think that kind of stuff, though, is going to be coming after the meeting. I don't know for sure if I'll pop the stream back on or not. Yeah, we'll see how I'm feeling at the time, but I think that's the plan though for the day. Get some food, fill in my docs for the meeting, have the meeting, come back, work on that stuff, and we'll see. Maybe I'll pop the stream on, but I don't know for sure. So thanks everybody for watching. I do hope everybody has a good day. Those of you that are taking part in the meeting here in about an hour, I will talk to you during that. Otherwise, I do, like I said, hope everybody has a good day, and I will catch you all next time, whenever it may be. Thanks.